this edition of Stu and the Gasholes. Chad and Joe, the Gasholes, love my introduction.
You're
So,
getting better every time. You get a little better.
So you know
oh,
what?
really?
You know what I love about them? The energy that you bring.
That's true.
The sheer energy of how you say it.
Welcome.
I'm so dynamic, you
Yeah.
guys.
Welcome to Stu and the
I
Gasholes.
feel like I'm at one of those astronomy. What's it called? The things where
That's right.
the
Yeah.
guys in
Planetarium
yeah, the
Uh,
planetarium.
over here.
Now,
it's the Charlie Brown teacher. Wah,
sorry,
wah,
sorry,
wah, wah, wah,
sorry, Stu. Go ahead.
wah,
Anyways,
wah. All right. Well, let's introduce our guest today. We've got Dave Schryver from the American Public Gas Association joining us. So, Dave, I just have to say that we recorded a couple episodes this week, and Chad and Joe put on collared shirts for one of our guests who is a former congressman. So you get hoodies from the
I
guys
almost
today.
want to
Yes.
pull over.
in my defense, I forgot about this until about 2 minutes. So, I mean, I can go put a collar shirt on if you guys want to wait a minute, but pretty much this is standard thorough.
This
Like,
is
I'm,
operating. It's
I'm,
the
I'm a
standard
big hoodie
operating
guy.
procedure.
if you guys want to go change, that's also okay. So I'm pretty much
Is that
sure.
is that is that intentional? Like, Chad, Stuart, go change so I can talk to Dave.
Please leave.
I'm pretty sure that Stu sleeps in that kind of shirt. So, uh, anyways, Dave, what's up, dude? How are you?
I'm doing well. What about you guys? It's been, looking forward to spring. It's kind of a spring-like but rainy here, so coming out into some warmer weather, so that's a good thing.
Let's see
So
it.
for those of you that don't know, we're gonna have Dave just share kind of a little bit about himself, his career path, what he's currently doing now, and then we'll get into the meat of what we're gonna talk about. So do that now.
Now it's
I
your
will
turn.
do
Now
that
it's your
now.
turn, Dave. You're up.
I'm up. This is my cue. Well,
Yeah.
I grew up in Ohio for the most part, in the east side of Cleveland. After college, moved to DC, started working on Capitol Hill. I worked for a senator from Louisiana for 7 years. I was a token Yankee in the office, and I blame my 7 years in Congress on my current hairline. I told the senator after 7 years of working for him, I felt comfortable saying y'all and felt I had to leave before I start saying I reckon or I'm fixing. So left the Hill. I actually moved out to Colorado Springs Utilities in Colorado Springs. Worked for them for 5 years. So they're actually an APGA member. They're both a public gas and a public power system. And in fact, we have someone from Colorado Springs Utilities on our board, Crystal Cooley. But worked out there for 5 years. Foolishly made a decision to move back to DC to take a job with the American Public Power Association. Worked there for about 3 years, and then I moved over to APGA, and I've been here since. I just saw on LinkedIn it was my 21st anniversary at APGA. I know I look a lot younger.
Why was
But,
it foolish? Why was it a foolish decision? Because Colorado's really nice.
Colorado's really nice.
I figured that was why.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually do some work with those guys, so pretty familiar with Colorado Springs, and I've been out there a few times. Dogs barking in the background, so that's fun for
We
everybody.
didn't hear it.
Oh, you didn't? Good.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did. Anyways, so now I'm completely thrown off of what the hell I was going to ask you. Oh, no, I was going to say, so you talked about APGA and the 21 years there. What did you start off doing at APGA, and then kind of what are you doing now, and what did you do in those 21 years?
Sure. I moved over to APGA from APPA. I had met my current wife. She's a senior vice president now at APPA. I had met her there, and after a year or so of living together, working together, I felt I got to get the heck out of here. So I moved over to APGA, basically
you're
doing
married.
government relations work.
Wait a minute. Did you leave APPA on your own accord, or were
I
you?
did. I did.
Or
Or
did
was
your
your wife
wife
like, listen,
get
you gotta
ready?
go?
She probably pushed me out. I actually had done some work with APGA with Bert Kalish on issues related to market transparency with the CFTC, other market issues. And when Bert became the CEO of APGA, he reached out to me about coming on board and doing the legislative work. So I came on board as Vice President of Government Relations, got promoted to Executive Vice President. And then when Bert retired at the end of 2019, I took over as CEO, and I've been in this position since 2020. We had one board meeting in January of 2020, my first board meeting as CEO, and then we
Oh,
had COVID. Yeah, so which and our bylaws specifically prohibited remote voting. So that was a challenge we had to get through, and it was a strange period to come on board. It was nice for me because I was working at home, and my wife was working in the office upstairs, and she types like she's using a hammer. So I would hear these, typing above me, and then my boys were in virtual school. They were in middle school at the time, in sixth and eighth grade, and I literally heard my eighth grader say while he was in virtual French class, "I got him with a headshot. Cover me. I'm going left." So at that point, I said, I got to start going back to the office. So there was no traffic at that time, which was great. It
Yeah.
was about 10 or 12 minutes to come in. It was just myself and another individual on the other side of the office. So it was the best commute to DC I could ever have. And now things are back to normal. And it took me an hour to get in to travel 7 miles this morning. So
DC traffic is
You need to
brutal.
borrow Stu's bike.
Yeah.
yeah, that's right,
Yes.
Stu. Yeah, for those of you listening to the podcast, Stuart used to work at
Yeah.
APGA. He left us last fall, which we were sad about. But Stuart used to bike to work, which
Yeah.
is a
It's got
nice
like
way
a
to
banana
travel.
ski, castles. A beautiful bike. A
It's
beautiful bike.
very green of
Yeah.
me.
Really quick, I want to ask, or have you just quickly explain. We keep talking about these acronyms, and APGA is obviously the American Public Gas Association. But for those people that are not familiar with it, because maybe not everyone is, can you just kind of explain what the APGA is and what you do?
Absolutely. So we're a trade association. There's trade associations in DC for everything. The actually NFL is actually a trade association. AARP is a trade association. So our trade association, what we represent are cities or communities that own their own natural gas system. There are about 1,000 of them nationwide in 38 states. One of our largest members is Philadelphia Gas Works. They're the oldest and largest public gas system. But we have other large members: Memphis Light Gas and Water, CPS Energy, which serves San Antonio, Tallahassee. So there's a lot of public gas systems throughout the United States. But as I mentioned, I grew up in Ohio. I'm a Big Ten guy. But if you look at our membership, we're an SEC
SEC
intensive
building.
association. A lot of our members are in the Southeast Conference states, and that's because as natural gas came out of the Gulf of Mexico, for a lot of small and medium-sized communities, the only chance to get that gas into their community was to create their own natural gas system, which is why we have over 80 members in Alabama and Tennessee and Louisiana, all the SEC states.
I
That's
know
nice.
we're going to veer off, and there's other questions that we ask, but I want to ask one question because I don't know the answer to it. We obviously, with what we do, we work on the distribution side of the business, which is all of your members. Um, is there ever a time where a municipal gas association gets swallowed up by a private company? Is there ever a time where they go out and buy municipal gas systems? Because I'm not in my I feel long, but relatively in the course of history, limited time in the gas industry, I don't recall ever seeing that. So I was just wondering if that's something that does actually happen.
There are not a lot of cases of big, large investor-owned systems, swallowing up natural gas, public gas systems, but it has happened in the past. And conversely, we've seen incidents where a city will create its own gas system and create their own system. It doesn't happen much because it's so infrastructure intensive, but cities, have moved in that direction. More often than not, what we've seen is if you have a small gas system, 5, 6 employees, and you have that gas system manager who's been there 25 years and he's going to retire, and the city is having a hard time finding someone. Um, then what would happen is that city would look at being acquired by a neighboring public gas system. So that public gas system would just be consumed or absorbed by another
That was going
neighboring
to be
public gas system.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Do you ever see public gas systems kind of cannibalizing each other? So I guess the answer is yes, that does happen.
It does. As I said, there's a lot of small, medium-sized communities. So in many cases, they're not contiguous to and that's my big word of the day, to an investor-owned gas
Get that
system.
toilet paper for Christmas?
There we go. So it's hard for that investor-owned system to absorb that small public gas system because they're just not contiguous or connected.
You said something that amazed me that there's 80 in Alabama. Is that what
Hmm.
that's wild to think of.
Yeah, it's a lot
Especially
of
when
small meat.
especially in Columbus and Ohio, there's the major players like Columbia Gas here in Columbus. Like I can't even imagine 80 different systems. That's
Well, it's
wild.
crazy when you like look at some states that have like that are roughly the same size as
Yeah,
Alabama that have 2 or 3 gas utilities in the entire state.
yeah,
So
you
And
are.
yeah, these are some of these are very small communities. In fact, one of our members has 50 customers.
Wow.
Very small community, but they're serving 1,000, 2,000. Huntsville's one of our larger members in Alabama, but yeah, it's a very heavy concentration in the SEC states. I have an embarrassing admission to make. I interviewed Stuart to become our vice president of government relations. I'm interviewing him, and he said he went to Mississippi State, and I said, "Oh, is that Ole Miss?" And I think he almost walked out of the
I thought
interview
you
right
said get out.
then. Exactly.
It took
I'm surprised he didn't walk out, but he made it pretty clear to me that those are two different schools.
I gave you 5 years, Dave, and then I was like, well, I kind of
That's it. He knew at that moment. At that moment.
uh now so I'll jump in real quick and just ask, Dave, my time at APGA and just getting to know the members, I mean, I really feel like the APGA members serve communities, and not a lot of folks in the natural gas supply chain can say that. And so, if you don't mind, talk a little bit more about kind of that service to the community. What does separate an APGA member from an investor-owned utility? And one that immediately comes to mind, if you want to talk a little bit about them too, is the Navajo Tribal Utility Authority. So I don't think a lot of folks that tune in. I mean, I say a lot of folks. There's only 5 folks that listen to our
I think we're like
podcast, but
7. I got
but
Logan to watch one.
but NTUA, right? I mean, they're very unique, and I think that's a cool aspect of the energy industry that not a lot of people know about.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, and that's a great point, Stuart. If you look at our membership, the reason we're different than the American Gas Association that represents investor-owned systems is, for the most part, our members are regulated at the local level by a city council or a locally elected or appointed utility board. They're part of that community. Our members live in the community. The dollars stay in the community. There's much more local control over public gas system, and their focus is really on providing safe and affordable natural gas to the customers because sometimes natural gas prices rise and there's not a lot our members can do about that, especially when you have incidents like Storm Uri. But when natural gas prices get high, people complain, they call the mayor, and it's not a call the gas system manager wants to get from the mayor saying, why are prices high? So they're really focused on doing their best to provide affordable natural gas service to their customers. And as Stuart talked about, the Navajo Tribal Utility Authority, I mean, that's a system that's challenged in many ways, both economically and they provide service to over a wide area, but they provide an essential service, and natural gas is 92% efficient.
How many customers do they have, Dave?
Or
Oh boy, it's
Or
no, they have what is the number? It's a few thousand, right, Stuart?
that's interesting.
I think
he
that's
doesn't know
right.
he doesn't work there anymore.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But I mean, but Dave, your point about, I mean, they serve, I mean, the Navajo tribe, I mean, it spans Arizona, New Mexico, part of Utah, maybe. I mean, if not, it's right there on that Four Corners. And so, I mean, you're talking about, how many ever employees serving like size of Alabama in one service territory.
That's crazy.
Crazy. I never even heard of them before.
Neither have I. I want to go see him now and try and sell him something.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, they have a lot of challenges with that system. And I know even electrifying it, some of the homes don't have electricity yet. So Navajo Tribal Utility Authority is also a public power system. And as I mentioned, my wife is a senior vice president at APPA, and they've been involved in efforts to help electrify get electricity to homes that currently don't have it. So, when you don't have electricity, that's, it's a challenging way to live
Crazy.
in 2025 in the US.
How long they been around?
Oh,
3 weeks.
Question.
uh, yeah, a while,
Yeah.
I mean, years we're talking,
I'm
decades.
looking it up.
decades.
Okay. Okay. All right. So one of the things that you guys do is a lot of, and I know, well, Stuart used to, but now he stinks and doesn't do anything. The big, you guys were big on advocacy, and promoting natural gas, in the industry. Right now, I guess, what kind of big advocacy priorities do you guys have for your public utilities, for this year, or and maybe looking into the future?
Sure. Hey, advocacy is one of the key roles of APGA, advocacy operations assistant, education, other things we can do to enhance the value proposition of APGA membership. But in terms of advocacy, every Congress, every administration has different challenges, different opportunities for us. And as we look at the new administration, a new Congress, we look at what opportunities do we have for advocacy, where do we want to attack, where do we want to defend. And one of the challenges we had over the last couple of years was on appliance efficiency. Going back, God, almost 15 years now, APJ was involved in litigation against a direct final rule of establishing a new efficiency standard for furnaces. Now, we're going forward 14 years to last year when DOE came out with another standard for furnaces that would establish a nationwide condensing standard for furnace efficiency. And the reason that's a big deal is because you're eliminating non-condensing furnaces from the marketplace. And so if you live in a home in Minnesota or Joe,
Upstate.
you're in New York, so cold weather area, and your non-condensing furnace goes out in the winter, which it's not going to go out in the summer, it's going to go out in the winter. And
Well, they
you're
never break in the summer.
exactly. What can I get in right now? And you add the cost of the appliance plus the cost of changing the venting out.
Oh,
It may become unaffordable for some people, and they're going to switch to electric heat because that's what they can afford right now, even though it's going to cost them more on a monthly basis than natural gas will. So we filed a suit, the American Gas Association, National Propane Gas Association, against this furnace rule. Arguments were heard in court last fall. We expect a decision this spring. And the reason I'm saying all this is, would bore you all to death, but also to
I know you're talking.
give you a sense, not that you were listening, but give you a sense that appliance efficiency standards are one of the areas we'll be focusing on this Congress, both regulatory through the Department of Energy, but also legislatively. Ultimately, an administration can do a lot of things through regulation. But when the next administration comes in, they can undo all the things that were done through regulation by the previous administration. So if
Yeah.
you want changes set in stone, you really need legislation.
I have a question, and you
Yeah.
may or may not know the answer, but why would it take 6 months essentially to come up with a ruling on that? Like, why do you present in fall and they give you an answer in April? Like,
Well, if I was a judge, I'd have
Have
decided
you
that
ever
day.
worked?
But
Have you ever done anything with the government?
I try not to, but
yeah,
that's crazy. Like,
the courts move very slowly. I mean, as I said, if I was judge, I would have decided right then and there.
yeah,
But courts move very slowly. So
crazy.
there's a number of factors they consider as they move forward. But we do expect a decision this spring. We hope it's a good decision for us because we think that protects consumers, preserves consumers' interests, lets consumers choose the appliance that best suits their needs. And we think it's a flawed rulemaking to begin with. I mean, if you if you can, if you live in a cold weather state, you've already made the switch to a condensing furnace. If you can. Now, if you can't because of the cost, that's a whole other issue. And in that case, the government's going to be basically telling you, well, when your non-condensing furnace breaks, and believe me, if you're going to paycheck, month to month, like a lot of people are, when that non-condensing furnace breaks, you're going to do whatever you can to keep that thing going as long as you can, because you can't afford the additional cost of a new appliance plus the venting cost, or you're going to switch to electricity, which is going to hurt consumers because they're paying more on a monthly basis throughout the course of the winter.
Good question. What happens if it comes springtime and they go, nah?
Go.
Like they make the ruling not in your favor.
Oh, if it comes springtime and the court rules against us, well, then we'll have to consider our options. There are always other options. So we would consider options. There's always
I have another dumb question, but who
Like,
is the court it goes in front?
U.S. District Court.
Okay, I didn't know.
So you just said something to me and something, and it's interesting, and I don't want to get too far away from our topic, but I wanted to ask the question. Every time a new administration comes in, people sign 400,000 executive orders. right? And then for 4 years or 8 years or whatever the time period is, that's the law of the land. And then as soon as the next administration come in, they cancel those executive orders and they sign their own executive orders. It is my understanding that to take an executive order and to put it into law, it has to go through Congress. Is that correct?
That's not correct. No, executive orders can be done by the administration without any approval.
I
Uh,
know that, but I'm saying to make sure that an EO isn't something that is only for your term. If you wanted to extend it out
oh,
to the life of the country, for example, and to put it into a law, that has to be done through the courts, correct?
correct. Through Congress.
Through Congress.
Through Congress, yes, which is why we would be looking at changes to the Energy Policy and Conservation Act, which is the law, the act that governs
Right.
standards and how efficiency rules are promulgated. So we would like to see changes to that piece of legislation to cement those things in stone. So they're in stone going forward and can't be changed.
Yeah, I think
Dave,
that's part of the problem with kind of government, right? Is that every 4 to 8 years, all the rules change, and depending on who's in charge, and it's very difficult for average Americans because like everything's kind of always in flux, right? To some degree.
It's difficult. I mean, it's difficult to pass legislation yeah, as a whole. We don't see many laws passed just because in the Senate, for the most part, you'll need 60 votes, and rarely has any party had 60 votes or 60 members of one party. In the House, it's much easier to pass legislation, but as a general rule, it's getting harder and harder to pass legislation. We'd see a lot more done through regulation, but in theory, regulation has to be consistent with law. And if it's not, it's challenged in court. And as I mentioned, those things can move slowly and take a while. But ideally, when you want to see something change going forward and see it set in stone, getting legislation through Congress and signed by the president is the way you want to go. But as I mentioned, that's very difficult.
Kind of
Dave,
because I mean, if you think about it, like if you have a 4 year term, right? Essentially, you're only guaranteed the 4 years. I mean, how many things can you even get in front of through Congress and put into law in a 4 year period? I mean, that's a big ask in a short amount of time, specifically at the rate of how it kind of everything operates.
It's difficult. Went to a seminar once where I think it was done by the Congressional Management Foundation, where they talked about if a member of Congress, if Joe's in Congress, if Joe has a great idea, and yeah, that's probably not going to happen. But let's go with
And
Stuart.
you
We're
know
all
what?
still shocked.
There's worse ones. I'm telling you right now.
If Stuart's in Congress and
yeah.
Stuart has an idea
Better.
and Stuart wants to, introduce a bill on his idea and move that bill through, on average, it takes 7 years if you're successful to move that from point A across the finishing line. And that's if you're successful.
Like applying for permits.
Well, no. Well,
Yeah.
no, but if you think about it, it's kind of we the other day we had interviewed Congressman Ryan, and that's what he was saying. Like we'd asked him like what some of his best and brightest achievements are, the things he's the most proud of. And he's like, man, there's things that I worked on years ago
Better
that
than
are
that.
now coming to fruition, and I'm not even in office anymore that I
Mhm.
still see that I was like, hey, I worked on that. That's awesome. So I get that, man. But it's an insane amount of time if you think about it to get anything accomplished. At least in my very short, you know.
Small sample size.
No, I mean,
Just-
everything in my world and most people's lives is right now is instant gratification. Everybody wants to do it immediately. So to put that much time between the introduction of a potential bill and to have one pass through the other side is 7 years it seems incredibly
I thought it
long.
was tough to sell the gas utilities. Like
Yeah.
About the same.
Now, it's a slow and arduous process, and sometimes, you can work for years on something and it'll be changed. And at the end of the day, the best
You get
result for
voted
you is for
out.
nothing to happen. So it's a challenging process. I mean, Congress, state legislatures move much more quickly than Congress does. Congress is a very deliberative body. You have a bill introduced, you have a hearing, you have a markup. Very rarely does this, a lot of these bills on niche issues or, single issue items don't move on their own. Some do, but they get tacked into a larger bill. For example, if we had an energy issue that we wanted to have addressed, it would probably not move on its own. It would only move as a larger energy package. And, we've seen few and far between in terms of large energy packages. We're hopeful we get one this Congress because we think there's a number of changes we'd be advocating for, ranging from permitting to appliance efficiency to giving FERC refund authority under Section 5 of the Natural Gas Act. So when consumers are overcharged, they can be by the pipeline, they can be refunded. But it remains to be seen. Right now, Congress is wrestling with reconciliation, the debt limit. So there's a number of issues on their plate right now. So we'd love to see an energy bill, but obviously these things take time.
Well, there's a lot that's happening in government right now, and I think everybody's inundated with a lot of
Wow.
different stuff. So,
I'll take us back on track since we went down a little
no,
rabbit.
that was a fine
No, that was
track.
cool. I love that stuff because I don't know how it works and
No, don't be a
it's
jerk.
dumb questions. But I get it back on track a little bit though with the APGA stuff. You guys do some of the best events in our industry.
Oh,
In
thank you.
my and Joe opinion,
That's
not
some
just
the
ours.
best.
Yeah, that's just our opinion, but you
I
guys do some
appreciate
great
it.
stuff.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Where are you guys going to be this year?
Hi,
And
Sheila.
yeah, I should. And who can come to those events? Like who's going to be there?
Not
Yeah,
us.
Sheila does a great job for us, and we're really lucky because throughout the course of our membership, we've had a lot of great people, and they've stayed because they're part of the community. They feel a sense of ownership within their utility. They enjoy the service they provide. So we at our events we get to see the same people over and over, and as much peers and colleagues, they're friends. We do 4 events a year. Our event in January just occurred. That's in DC. That's our board meeting, but that's also when we get people up to the Hill.
You've done it.
Stuart's protege, Josh, was in charge of our event this year, working with Aaron, and we had over 85 meetings on the Hill in the course of
We've
the.
actually had the opportunity to do that with Stuart. So
Okay. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean they can go, they can hear from Josh, they can hear from me, they can hear from Aaron anytime. But having our members get up to the Hill and they're hearing from the people who live in their community, the members of Congress, and certainly we're raising issues, but for us the most important thing is allowing our members to build that relationship with their member of Congress. So when a bill comes across a staffer's desk or a dear colleague letter and they're thinking about signing it, they may say, well, I'm going to reach out to Stuart out in Huntsville because Stuart came in and talked to me about this issue, or Stuart's a gas system, and I want to get his thoughts. And having that relationship in place is so important.
It's funny that you say that because I had the opportunity to meet with Claudia Tenney when I was there, and she's super nice. And I think one of the things that most people need to know is that and Congressman Ryan said this, is that there's like 10 or 15% of the people on the left and the right that dominate 98% of the news. The vast majority of the people that sit in Congress you've never even heard of, unless they're not really big popular names. But those are the people that are the ones that are kind of like the worker bees, I feel like, and the people that are like really engaged in what's going on. And they're all super down to earth. Everybody that I've ever met, that it's not a huge pool, but a handful of them like have always been great. And I say that because Miss Claudia is part of this my district, right? And about I don't know, maybe 6, 8 months ago, I was walking into a gas station, and or walking out of the gas station, and she was walking in, and I kind of caught eyes with her, and I was like, why does she look so familiar? And I was like, oh my God. So I said, hey, Claudia, how are you? And I said, I don't know if you recall, I'd met with you. And she goes, oh my God, Joe. She was like, and she immediately like gave me a hug and was like, how are you? And I was like, I met this woman for an hour. Right. And like to be so like gracious and even to just remember who I was, I thought was really cool. And I think a lot of the congressmen and congresswomen are like that. It's just not what most people get to see. So
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's, and former Congressman Ryan, I think, laid out a good picture. There's a lot of great people up there doing really hard work. And,
yeah.
but if you, in terms of advocacy, having that relationship in place, and even if at the state level, with, the state office of Senator, X, or the, district office of Congressman Y, building those relationships is critical. And as I mentioned, we had 85 meetings and over 85 meetings in January while our members are in town. This spring, we'll be in Portland, Maine. for our board meeting, and then we also are doing a gas supply conference. We do that in spring because people are coming out of the winter heating season, so there's a discussion on lessons learned, hedging practices,
Is that the
an
one in
outlook
Idaho?
in terms of supply.
Is
No,
that the
that's
one
what
in
I mean.
Idaho?
You just said it's
No, Portland, Maine.
Oh,
This
is that is there there's that's the spring is up in Portland, Maine?
That's, yeah, but spring is Portland, Maine in May. In July we have our annual conference, and that's in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho,
Okay,
which
that's
is
one.
which is beautiful. We were there about 10 years ago, I think. Beautiful area. That's our one of our largest events. Our members come, some of them bring their utility boards, and we have speakers coming covering a wide variety of areas. In both industry related and leadership related, communication related. We have breakout sessions on government relations, on operations. So it's a very widely attended event. I think last year we were in Traverse City and we had close to 500 people there. And in the fall, that's our operations conference. Now we always do that in the Southeast because it's focused on operational issues. And as I mentioned, we're an SEC intensive association, so it allows utility crews, utility employees to drive to the event.
Where is it this year?
This
Was it
year
in,
we're in Charlotte,
oh,
in
so
Charlotte.
easy to fly into, easy to drive into, and we have this. This is a pretty strongly attended event as well. We have 3 tracks:
mhm.
environmental, distribution, and it's. I know Aaron's already started putting together the program, but it's as I said, a very strongly attended event as well.
I don't know if you can say now or if you know, but you guys usually have a really awesome guest speaker that comes in. Do you know who it's going to be, or you're not
For
gonna
the annual or for the
for the
operations?
for the
For
annual?
the annual, we're still finalizing that. We have a couple
I'm
speakers.
available.
Yeah, we've had some great motivational speakers. We had Joe Theismann a few years
You know
ago.
who else you had? Wait a minute.
We had Merrill Hodge, correct. I
That's
can't
his
believe you still
that's
have
his
him there.
badge.
Stole his name badge. And and then I got to meet him. I don't know if you know this, but I got to meet him in the bar. I sat and talked to him while he ate dinner after a round of golf, and I talked to him for about an hour and talk about the most down to earth, awesome,
Oh yeah.
amazing. Like he's just absolutely an incredible story and a really cool guy. So for the reason I kind of busted in and said this is if you've never been to one of the events and you want to go, the one in June, right? You said or July?
July.
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 One in July in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho would be the one to go to. They do an amazing job. It's always run amazingly. The speakers are always great. It's by far, in my opinion, the premier gas association show of the year, always.
Oh, thank
So
you. We're gonna have to give you commission now, Joe.
No,
yeah,
don't
no,
tell him.
don't worry. I'm typing up an invoice right after this. Um,
Well,
no, but all joking aside, like it's a really good event, and I think you guys do a bang up job, and the staff of APGA really puts together a good content and good information, and it's very valuable for people that go. And I think
Especially
that
since Stu left.
Yeah.
yeah, primarily yeah, that's you had asked who can come to these events, and all of us can, but Stu can. Which I find hilarious.
we
So, anyways,
we would just charge Stuart double.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for
but the
sure.
events are open to all. Obviously, the member rate is a discounted rate, but the events are open to all. And I appreciate the kind words about the program we put together.
I just think that a lot of people are siloed in their particular industry, not industry, their particular association. And while their utility may not be a public gas utility, the information that you guys discuss and the breadth of knowledge that is actually given out in conversation and dialogue there is valuable for people in the gas industry, not necessarily in just the public gas industry. So I wanted to point that out. That's all.
And next year, I think you'd be able to drive there, Joe. Next year we're
Where we
in
going? Where?
Providence for the annual.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking hockey earlier. Once we go offline, I'll tell you about a speaker we're looking at that you guys might appreciate.
Ooh,
I know
I
a
would
good
like
place
to
for
know more about
Providence.
that. Yeah, Providence is about 5 hours for me. Believe it or not, it's actually easier for me to get to Charlotte than it is Providence. So just because I can hop on a plane and be there like in an hour and a
Sure.
half.
Yeah.
So Not real easy to fly from
Last
Central New York to Rhode Island. All
last question for you.
right.
Do you have any hot takes? No pun intended.
Yeah, no,
No,
Or
appreciate
all
no
pun
that.
intended.
pun intended.
Yeah, or all puns intended.
Well, I think we're going to see a lot of activity on the appliance efficiency front. Right now, there's an effort in Congress to roll back a water heater rule under the Congressional Review Act that applies to tankless water heaters. It's one of our focuses is going to be appliance efficiency, both regulatory and legislative. So I think it's a I don't want to use the term arcane, but it's kind of a niche issue, but it's really important in terms of, preserving the ability of consumers to get the appliance that, fits in their home and the one they want. We've seen last year, it was a negotiated rulemaking, a new natural gas cooktop appliance efficiency rulemaking, and it's gone through, it was negotiated. The life cycle of an appliance of a natural gas cooktop is about 17 years. And I don't know if they really ever last that long. We're beating the hell out of ours right now, so it's not going to last that long. But over the course of the 17-year life cycle, this rulemaking is projected to save you less than $10. So
Wow.
it's, I don't know what Happy Meals cost, but think of the
Right.
hundreds of
More
millions
than
of
that.
dollars that were spent on, you know, the science behind this rulemaking, justifying the rulemaking, the man hours spent on it. And you're saving someone $10 over 17 years. I kind of question the wisdom in the resources used for that. Certainly a number of years ago, efficiency rulemakings and increasing efficiency made a lot of sense. But right now, you're really fighting among the margins because of the gains that have been made over the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So,
You got to call Elon.
there we go. Um,
You tell him it's only $10 in savings. He'll make a Tesla stove. Wait a minute. That thing will do all kinds of stuff.
we want that natural gas stove. We don't want a Tesla stove.
Hey, you never know with that guy.
But there's a
I'll
reason
make a
they say
tool.
now we're cooking with gas. But no,
Actually,
I
you know
think
what? Wait.
you're
I
gonna
want
see
to.
a lot of activity in the appliance efficiency front. I don't know how much is going to get done, but we certainly would like to see a lot get done in the next 2 years. Um, who can forecast elections and what's going to happen in 2 years, but the trend over time is the party in the White House tends to lose seats. And given the narrow margin in the House, there's a chance the House goes Democratic. Now APGA is nonpartisan. Democrats. There's some issues where Democrats that we work on where the Democrats are our champions. Other issues where the Republicans are our champions. But if you have a mixture between the House and the Senate, or a mixture in terms of party between the White House and the Congress, it's sometimes hard to get things done, which makes this 2 year window, a really good window to try and get some things done if you can, because who knows where we're going to be 2 years from now. And as I said, you know, it's hard when you have a Democratic Congress or a Democratic House, or Republican Senate, or a Republican White House and a Democratic Congress to get things done. Now you can get things done, and there's some issues like pipeline safety that tend to be not partisan or less partisan, but um, you know, it's been difficult for Congress, for the parties to work together on getting things done unless they have to. As I said, I worked in Congress for 7 years, and I once heard a saying, which I thought was interesting, maybe sometimes true, that Congress does two things well: nothing and overreacting. So I'm not sure where I heard that, but certainly there'll be a window in the next 2 years, and we're already almost into March,
Crazy.
to try and get some things done. Now, Stuart's our government relations guy. So, Stuart, how did I do? Did I cover it
Yeah,
well?
did good. Did
Thank
good.
you.
Now, I
Listen,
mean,
we've known him a
I'll
long
just,
time. We never heard anything like that before.
yeah, I know. No, I mean, I think Dave, you hit on a point, and I think it's important to reiterate, like these consumer, appliance efficiency standards are so impactful to consumers, and I don't think a lot of people realize
No
how
idea.
much
I have
that
no
can,
idea.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like I mean, you hate to say nefarious, but like the last administration was definitely doing some things with these rules that would significantly limit consumer choice. And so when you're walking down the aisles of your favorite, home appliance store, like you may not have the option, you wouldn't have had the options that you could have had if some of these rules are finalized. So
Dude, I
if
live in New York. I might not get them anyways.
well,
You
well,
can't even
but
get grocery bags.
but I mean, I think that's, I mean, we're talking about federal laws, right? I mean, I think even at the state level, like
Yeah.
some of those states are recognizing you start taking away consumers' choices, I mean, you're going to get some blowback. And then also too, if the choice you're leaving with the consumer is more expensive, then like they're going to, vote you out, right? Are you as a, I mean, you got to look at Hochul, right? I mean, she's not going forward with all that what she said she was going to do.
Can't. Should be
Right.
suicide.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Same with Westmore in Maryland. I mean, the state level folks are recognizing like consumers, they want their appliances and they want affordable electricity and
Well,
affordable
I
especially
think
energy.
in a cold weather state, you want that natural gas furnace, and if in your home you want that natural gas cooktop.
well, you want the choice to be able to have
Yeah.
what you
Yeah, it
want.
doesn't even, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the bigger part.
And I think that like, Stuart, you're 100% right. 99,
Write that down.
I, I would wager more than 99% of people have no idea that any of this is happening. And that
Mhm.
one day, if everybody got their dithers and it went the way that they had been suggesting it should go, you'd walk into your local Lowe's and it would be only electric appliances. And people would go, I need gas. I have gas in my house. And I'm sorry, it's not available
You
to you
don't have
right
that anymore.
and the cost that's associated with retrofitting homes with different, not just the appliances, but everything that goes along with that, people can't afford that. Are you crazy? Like,
And the frustrating thing for us and our members, and I know Stuart as well, when he worked here, and probably still for Stuart, if he has any loyalty to APGA whatsoever, is
I
A little bit, a little bit.
is when you talk about energy efficiency and efficiency groups will say electric appliances are a lot more efficient, but you look at that natural gas appliance and the electric appliance, that electric appliance, you let's say it's gas generation, you generate electricity with gas, you put that electricity on the transmission line, you put it on the distribution line, you bring it to your house, you're
Yes.
losing almost 60% of that energy.
It's
And when
crazy.
you
People
put,
don't
you
know.
put that natural gas in the pipeline, in transmission pipeline, distribution pipeline, and bring it to your house for your furnace or your
think
cooktop or your water
97%
heater,
from
it's 92%, yeah, 92% efficient. So you're only losing 8%. Now, certainly, we will get more renewable over time, but when the sun's not shining and the wind's not blowing, that renewable electricity is going to be backed up with natural gas generation. Isn't it a lot more efficient and effective to use that natural gas directly?
I think one of the things, and we talked about it, I've talked about it many, many times, and we talked about it with Mr. Ryan or Congressman Ryan, whatever the hell he goes.
Wow.
Um, well, it's hard for me to say. Like, I don't. You were like a doctor. I wouldn't be like, oh, Dr. Kuvo. I wouldn't call you that. Anyways, is that for so many years, natural gas was the bridge energy. It was the best solution. It was the best product that we could potentially even bring to market. And the amount of emission savings that natural gas is afforded is incredible. And
Mhm.
now to get the moniker of to be the the dirty energy again, it's like, what a weird world we live in. It's just we're just moved the ball a little bit. And 20 years ago, natural gas was, I mean, Chad said it just the other day. They were trying to make natural gas vehicles and buses and, anything that they could with natural gas. And now it's like, no, we're gonna back off of all that. It's weird to me. I don't know.
Well, I think, coal had a target on SPAC a number of years ago, and now that target's on natural gas.
Yeah, but now we're like, and we talked about this again the other day, is that we're now sending natural gas or not allowed to send natural gas to places that need clean energy, and instead they're building coal plants.
Yep.
It's like this doesn't even make sense to what we're doing. I think that that's where the general average consumer or American gets frustrated because it's not about common sense anymore. It's about more of a some type of weird polarized agenda. And I think that people get frustrated with that. And specifically, not just in the energy sector, I think they get frustrated with the cost of everything. And the government keeps telling us that it's okay, we're going to do this and it's going to be better for you. And meanwhile, your bank account, your savings is dwindling. Everything that you need to buy is far more expensive. And people lose confidence in that. So,
Yeah, I mean, you're preaching to the choir here, but I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to reduce emissions, it doesn't matter what the US does or what Australia does. It's a worldwide problem, and replacing older generation plants that are using coal with natural gas seems to be, make all the sense in the world. But still, certain groups are opposed to that because they would like just to move away from natural gas altogether. So.
Yeah, meanwhile, everybody doesn't understand that everything that we ever need, and as we grow as a country with the AI and everything, we need so much more power. And I think the it used to be, we talked about this the other day, but it used to be like who had this or who had that. Now it's who has the most energy. And we're like, we talk about trying to want to compete with China and stuff like that. They don't care. They're just like, we need energy, and we're going to do whatever it is that we can do to get said energy. And over here, we're playing fiddle fart with like, you know, we can't do this because of this regulation. And meanwhile, China is on this freaking
You
hot kick.
have to stop talking. We have to be done.
I'm mad.
We have to be done.
Yeah.
Energy is the lifeblood of our economy. So no, you're right, Joe. You should run for Congress.
Oh
I get,
boy.
I get passionate about this. I'd end up punching somebody in the face. It'd be on CNN. It would be a whole thing, Dave. It wouldn't
Be
be.
awesome.
All right, but for real though, I gotta go. I got
Yeah,
real
we have to go
jobs.
too.
All right,
Stuart
fine.
has a real job
Stuart's
now.
gotta
He doesn't
go.
have time to sit around.
Hey,
Dave,
Dave,
this has been
Thank you,
great.
Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Appreciate
Awesome.
appreciate the invitation.
Probably come out in a
man.
week or two, somewhere right around there.
And next
Uh,
time we're in DC, we're gonna get together with you, buddy.
Not Stu.
yeah, I look forward to that.
Not
Did,
Stu.
did you guys stop recording?
No, not yet. I can. Say
Okay.
bye. Bye, everybody.